Okay, guys, alternate ending. Take 43.
With so many movies on the net and TV, it's kinda hard being up and film savvy. Do you catch a show while you're on the go? And how do you know what to keep or what to throw? How do you know what to keep or what to throw? Tune in to alternate ending. Tune in to alternate ending. Tune in to alternate ending. Tune in to alternate ending now. Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies, one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarsinski, and today I'm joined by two film aficionados, film critic Tim Brayton, and in exciting news, we have a special guest joining us today, all the way from the Middle East, Andrew Milton.
The Middle East, in reference to where exactly?
I would say...
I'm in the Middle East coast of Scotland. That's
I know.
which is accurate relative to my position in that country, not globally.
In the middle of Iceland,
the United
Ireland.
States is the West, and the East is like Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yeah, I'll take it. That's fine. Like joining you live from
the Middle East.
The Middle East. Sure, why not? We'll go with it.
East of Canada, in Scotland. Super excited to have you here. And in sort of a meta twist, I don't even know if that's the right definition. We're here today with Andrew because Andrew has requested via Patreon for us to discuss our top 5 movie titles. And now he's here to join them with us. I don't know if that makes it meta. What does that mean? We'll find out today.
It means we're going to have so many requests from Patreons to guest star on the episode.
Yeah. We're going to have to nip that in the bud, aren't we?
We've opened a brutal Pandora's box here. It's going to be awful.
This is true, and it's one that I'm willing to take, even though this is just an exclusive episode. But still, Andrew, welcome to the show, and we're super excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, guys. I'm thrilled to be here, and yeah, it's a topic that I've been angling just to. I've had some thoughts on it, just on the basis of some of the titles of films in multiplexes in the last couple of months. It's lit a fire under me to talk about this topic in particular. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Super excited.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, I just said I'm excited. Again, I just keep saying I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because we haven't actually technically talked about the topic of the episode yet, but it is our top 5 movie titles of all time. So that comes courtesy of Andrew. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from? What is your project? What is your relationship to cinema?
My relationship to cinema is I took 2 years of film studies when I was in university back in between 2008 and 2010. And I've basically held onto that as a core aspect of my identity ever since, despite the fact it doesn't actually confer any kind of qualification upon me whatsoever. But I've been a follower of the formerly Antagoning Ecstasy until now, until recently, an alternate ending. For the better part of 10 years now, I think, where I've been just sort of a hanger on the commentariat. And also, I've been operating a podcast of my own, Two Friends Watch, with an old friend of mine from school, which we had Rob guest on a few years back for The Matrix. So I've been sort of like wheedling and insinuating myself into the AE crowd in subtle and insidious ways for some years now. So this is a fait accompli at long last.
Well, we're glad to have you on. And I will point out you've never had me on your show, which tells me that Rob is your favorite.
And, not at all.
I have feelings about that, and that's all I'm going to say.
Uh-oh. It's starting early. Tim's bringing it out.
This was strategic. This was a strategic maneuver.
That's right. He went with the easiest grab first, and he was like, yeah, Rob will come out, and then he'll work his way in to be on the episode. So I think it was strategic, and it was awesome. But I need to know more, Andrew, just about you. I've got some questions for you for people to really get at the root of who you are. Like someone to be like, I really know Andrew now. So I've got a couple questions for you, rapid fire. So if you were to abruptly transform into one animal, what would it be?
If I was to abruptly transform, like, are we talking like in this moment now, or in general life circumstances?
Life circumstances. It's today. You're out in the yard, and then you're like, I'm an animal. What would you be?
Okay, so this is I would go for a goose, like only because I've read the novel The Once and Future King by T.H. White, where they make an extraordinarily strong case for the geese being the happiest animals in the world, in the sense that they're migratory and they're able to sort of put down wherever they feel like and find contentment. So I would go for a goose. Sure, why not?
Choice.
Who knew? I always thought they were just kind of mean. I just thought they were like mean and territorial, and they pooped a lot.
To
people.
Well, as he said, they're very happy, and if you could walk around and poop wherever you were, I mean, it would be my quality of life would improve.
Sam's
and if I got
too.
to always be mean to people, God, sounds like heaven.
It feels like you're already on the way.
Am I allowed to push these questions back on you? Like, do you have these answers prepared ahead of time?
No, they're just for you, Andrew, just for you, which is why.
I feel like I would be a hedgehog.
Okay.
Oh, because they're like just kind of waddly, and it looks like they're always slightly unhappy, and they're also very prickly.
Okay, yeah, I can see it.
Fair. Well, now that you've said it, I'm like, I do kind of want to be a gorilla. I've always wanted to be in the monkey family. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No monkeys, gorillas.
Monkey, gorilla, like ape, one of those. Like, I think maybe the one without the hair on its butt. Which one is that?
That's the baboon, isn't it?
The baboon.
Like, well, I assume. Like, I think like the difference between a monkey and an ape is like the lowest of low-hanging fruit when it comes to the sort of pedantic corrections it's possible to make. It's like Frankenstein was the name of the doctor.
I am not afraid to make pedantic corrections. That's the thing.
That's why we love you.
We know. Okay, I'm going to throw it back to you, Andrew. What are your thoughts on food expiration dates? Just a suggestion or an actual deadline for consumption?
Depends on the food. I actually used to work in my day job in like a food packaging plant, and you would get away with things that would shock you, but in a lot of cases, these were like dried fruits and nuts, and you could basically put whatever number on those you felt like, really. But in terms of anything lactose, that I tend to be a bit more cautious with. Okay. Then I take the date a little bit more seriously.
All right, fair. Kind of middle of the road. Tim and I are both like firm, just until it's growing something, we'll eat it. And Rob's like, day of, that mustard's gone. And I'm like, it's just,
believe it.
It's a deal breaker.
If your yogurt doesn't have green on it, it's edible. That is my rule.
I kind of agree. I'll scrape that top off too. And last but not least, most relevant probably to this podcast, if you could only watch one movie over and over, the same movie over and over for the rest of your life, what would it be?
See, well, we do watch Die Hard religiously every Christmas, and its appeal hasn't waned yet. So kind of a basic answer, but it kind of, I don't know, it feels right to me. It feels pretty, it ticks all the boxes that I need.
Okay, Die Hard. I didn't expect it, but I like it. I think it's a good movie. Tim, I kind of want to know yours too, though. What would you pick?
I mean, my go-to answer for that would be probably something along the lines of like a Casablanca, a movie that I really love. Yeah. That's old and have watched many times and I know I haven't exhausted. I am increasingly concerned that the actual answer to the question might be Tom Hooper's Cats.
Oh, good Lord. Same thing. It's like a holiday tradition at this point for you, isn't it?
I watched it the first 3 Decembers it existed, and then I did not watch it this past December, and I feel really bad. I feel worse about missing Cats than I feel about missing Grinch this past Christmas.
Has it seriously been 3 years? I feel like that movie has not dropped out of the sort of bad film zeitgeist ever since I first had it mentioned.
2 of those years didn't count, so...
Okay, yeah. It does... It's bled together so much.
It was one of the last pre-pandemic cultural moments.
Yeah,
in a weird
for sure.
way.
But I haven't seen it still. I still need to get around to it. But
it's wretched. It's a very bad movie.
I need to get some people together, like in physical in a physically confined space before I approach cats. I don't dare approach it alone.
No, definitely not.
Same. Well, call me, Andrew, when you do. I haven't seen it either. We'll all try to get in the same room. Maybe it's a watch party movie. I don't know.
This could be a seasonal watch party. It feels like the material for it.
Yeah, I feel like, Carrie, you've just made me come up with my plan for my next birthday, FYI.
Oh.
So
No. Well, I can plan ahead for what I'm going to do on December 18th now, to say that I'm busy. But I will try. I will try to make it. Thank you for helping us get to know you a little bit better. And then, Andrew, we want to give you the opportunity to get to know us a little bit better, which leads us into what's been going on, which...
Yes,
there's some things.
I'm curious because we've been there's been talk in the Discord. There's been people fomenting. Like, where are they? What's been going on?
I know it feels bad. I would say it feels bad. Like I would say being a part of this podcast is a love/anxiety producing experience because you do feel this sense of obligation. Like, oh, I've got to get out there. I've got to do it. But you literally hit these points in your life where you're like, I actually can't. Like, I don't actually physically have the bandwidth or the time or the capacity to do it. And that's because it's been a busy few weeks. We've had a busy month in general. We headed to Sundance, which I haven't gotten to tell you guys about yet, which was...
I'm intrigued.
It's weird, but you guys are going to have to choose because there's been a lot of weird things. So you get Sundance weirdness. That's topic number one. You can choose from Sundance weirdness, or you can choose from my health update and the naked run. So it's where do you want to go?
I don't even think this is a choice. I mean, Sundance is what it is, but I need to hear about your health. I need to hear if your dead brain continues rattling around in your skull like an increasingly dried up raisin.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Lord.
It's tough. Andrew, what are you going to go with? Are you in agreement or do you want something from Sundance? What do you think?
I feel like it would be tactless to disagree. If we need to get the important news out of the way first to know that you're still with us.
Okay. All righty. Well, you know what? I do want to tell you my one highlight from Sundance, like the one thing, if I were the one standout thing, and then I'll jump into the naked run situation. But highlight I had of the entire Sundance. So you're going along the whole thing. We were there for, I think, about a week. And so it was Rob, me, and then 3 of our other friends who joined us for the event. So we were running around and we were doing interviews. We were standing in all these press lines. It was very cold. Like the entire time we were there, very cold. And I was questioning why we were there. Like it was just so much. It was just so overwhelming, questioning why we were there. But then I had a moment of clarity where I decided that I know my life's calling. Somebody approached me at an event or at a bar or something like that. And we were having this nice conversation and they looked at me and they were like, do you ever consider anything in like radio? And I was like, I do it.
Are you saying that someone came up to you at a bar and said, you have a face for radio?
Yeah. Yeah. They did. Well, they didn't say it like that, but they were like, you have a... Maybe they did. They said you have
that's just an old school joke. That's mean.
But maybe they did say that. But here's where it might get meaner. They were like, has anyone ever told you that you sound exactly like Peg Bundy?
Oh, Lord. See, I'm not directly familiar with the Al Bundy show. I have to admit. So, I don't have the frame of reference for that.
Yeah,
it's one of those old sitcoms I've never really stumbled across.
I think it's not a great voice. I don't think it's good.
It's real hard to spin it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
They felt it was a compliment. And I think her voice is different in real life than it is probably on that show. So they didn't say Peg Bundy. It's just whatever her name is in real life. But I had the moment of realization. I think I'm going to just try out to be maybe a voice actor. Maybe I will. It's a new avenue for me in life.
Okay. And if they actually said Katie Seagal's name, she's in fact a very good voice actor. She's on Futurama and is very good there.
That is who they said that my voice sounded like. Is that even factual? I can't think of what her voice sounds like.
You're a woman.
Okay.
So that's a similarity.
All right. Well, then we'll move on. Maybe I won't quit my day job just yet. But again,
tell us about your health.
Oh yeah, let me
Yeah,
get back
we need to hear this, Carrie.
So it's not brain health, it's heart health. I'm doing a full
So does this mean that the brain is just, they're not even going to try anymore? They're just going to let it go?
No, I have another appointment for that coming up in a couple weeks, but I forgot to reschedule it. So I need to, I had a conflict and I need to reschedule it. That one's coming up in March. But in the meantime, I thought maybe my heart was failing. At one point, I was like, I feel like I've got some like chest tightness and like chest and I was like, maybe something's clogged in there, or like maybe, I don't know, like there's a lot of tubes going in and out. I eat a lot of cheese and dairy. Like I thought maybe I was just not getting any blood flow. So I decided, I was like, I'm going to go in and do something called a stress test. Have either of you guys ever done this before?
I need to, because both of my grandfathers died from the sort of thing that a stress test causes, but I also know that the results would come back as I am extremely stressed. So I don't really need
You don't need to validate
I don't need the reminder.
Okay, well,
yeah, it's one of those things where you don't want the doctor to come back with confirmation in writing of what you already suspect.
Yeah, exactly. But I was looking to rule things out. So since you guys haven't done one, I'm going to tell you what you can be on the lookout for. It's so bad. It's like the worst.
I'm nervous now.
I know. I'm sweating even actually just remembering the situation. So I'm like, I mean, as you can see, I'm in like a giant like poncho. Like I'm not exactly.
You look very comfy.
I do feel comfy, but I'm pretty covered up usually. Like I'm not a big, like I don't think I've ever worn like.
I will also say I can tell that this is a day we have a guest on because you have actually brushed your hair before you got in front of the Zoom camera.
I actually did it. It's from last night, but I did brush it last night.
Okay.
But it was for Andrew. Last night I did brush it for Andrew.
Well, if it's any comfort to you, Carrie, for what it's worth, so have I, even if you can't tell.
Oh, I can tell. It is looking very smooth. It's looking very smooth.
Like if you saw a comparison like before and after, you would be able to tell the difference. So like that's unfortunate, but there it is.
Oh, that's good. Well, we're flattered. We're flattered that you did brush your hair for us. So this situation, so what ends up happening is you come in and like they're asking you all of these questions about like your exercise history, your health history, all this stuff. And there's this little part of you that's just like, well, I work out quite a bit. So I was like, I want them to know that like I'm coming into this as like kind of like an athlete. Like I'm pretty much an athlete. And so I came in and I answered all these questions about like how often I exercise, how often I run, all of this stuff that I do. So I'm coming in. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to set expectations. Like, you're going to have to just like take off your clothes. And I was like, oh, I didn't anticipate that. Like, I'm not like super big on taking off my clothes in general. Mm-hmm. So like,
Rob's told me that.
Right. He probably has. So right out of the gate, strip down to nothing. I've got some not great underwear that I'm left with, but otherwise I'm in the wind. And so I'm down to these things all of a sudden. So she's like, starts attaching all of these cords all over my body, like straight on to like some places. They're like really there. Mm-hmm. Like they're taped. They're there all over, up and down, whatever, under, over, in the cracks. They're everywhere. There's cords. So then she's like, okay, well now like I'm going to have you like stand here or whatever. And then she's like, I'm going to have you get onto this treadmill. So I was like, oh, you're putting me.
I'm currently picturing Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV at this point.
Was he naked on a treadmill for this?
I think that one of those montage sequences, I think so. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's at least shirtless on a treadmill.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just in my undies. They did give me a little cape that I could wear. So now picture me naked with cords all over and a cape on. Like that's what your visual can be.
So you're Captain Underpants at this point.
Captain Underpants. Okay. That's right. Yeah. And I think my underwear looked similar to Captain Underwear's pants. Like it was not great. It wasn't a great situation. I wasn't expecting to have my underwear exposed. It was a laundry day. So anyway, I've already told them how I'm a physical specimen and like I'm so in shape. And so she's like, okay, what's going to happen is they put you on the treadmill and she's like, we're going to just slowly increase the speed until your heart rate is just through the roof. And then we'll like turn it off or whatever. Mm. So like it starts off. She's like, we'll start you at a walk. So the walk starts. I'm so nervous because I'm naked. I mean, again, I'm not a mom. I'm like almost 40. I'm like, these things aren't like contained.
Stuff sagged that's not going to desag at this point.
Yeah, things are everywhere. So I'm like, okay, Carrie, just like forget that you're naked on a treadmill. So I start power walking. My cape is just flapping in the wind behind me. I'm just going exposed.
I'd go without the cape. The cape would have made it worse, I think.
It was worse because now I'm trying to hold the cape around me, but I'm losing the momentum of my arms that I can't get because I'm trying to hold the cape over myself so that I don't get hit in the face with a boob. So I'm trying to like keep everything contained. It's not working. So immediately I'm probably walking on 2.5 and I start just pouring sweat. I was like sweating and start panting. And I was like literally walking at this point. She's like, okay, you went at 30 seconds there. I'm going to like turn it up a little bit. And I was like, okay. So I'm probably at like 3.0 now, which isn't even like a 10-minute. I mean, it's like a 30-minute mile walk or pace. Now I'm like pouring sweat. My face is just like drenched and she's putting the elevation on now, like the height or whatever, the hills. So now
that catches up with you so much faster than you think it's gonna as well. Like a 2% grade, like is a lot more than it seems like it should be when you're looking at a treadmill.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're also like trying to like keep yourself covered and whatever at the same time too. So then what do? I'm like, I just start to like decide to tell a lie. I need to stop because I need some air, but I don't want to think that I can't actually run on a 3.0. So I'm like, I think I need to stop to tie my shoe. My shoe is feeling a little bit loose. And she's like, we can't stop. And I was like, oh God. So now I'm like, I'm running. She's like, oh, you're running. And she's like, this is still the walk. I'm like, oh no, I'm just going to like pick it up a little bit or whatever. And so finally I'm like, she's like, are you done? I'm like, no, keep it going. I can keep going. My heart rate's at like 185. I think I like topped out at like 4.5 miles per hour and like some minimum grade. I've pitted through. My entire cape is soaked. It's like sticking to me now.
Well, that keeps you from having to keep grabbing at it.
I get off this and I look her like subtly taking notes as to like what happened. And it was just like, had to stop because of fatigue. And it was like literally like a walking mile pace. I was like, oh, I think
5 miles an hour is a jog. You are no longer walking at 4.5 miles.
No, I wouldn't have said so. No.
I was like, could not breathe. I was like, I think I'm going to pass out. So I was just like, this feels uncomfortable. Like, I just wanted you to know, like, normally I run a lot faster than that, but my shoes were a little loose and I couldn't stop.
You know, this is what she does for a living. I'm sure she's heard all the lies.
See, the thing is, like, I've run on treadmills before, and the thing is, like, when you do have to get off to tie your shoe, because that has happened to me, like, it feels like it's perfectly legitimate, but you feel like you're letting yourself, you're letting yourself down, even to just like make this necessary adjustment. So I feel your pain, Carrie, is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Also, I try to avoid treadmills. I hate them very much. If I have to get on one of those things, I usually get on an elliptical. But when I am on a treadmill and I'm going really fast, and for some reason I have to stop going really fast, like now, rather than wind down for 5 minutes, I inevitably feel once I'm off the treadmill, like I'm about to just lunge forward, like the entire world is coming at me about 6,000 miles an hour. I don't like that feeling. I would be worse getting off the treadmill to quote unquote tie my shoe than I would be to stay on the treadmill in the first place.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
But so what was the have you had the diagnostics come back yet? What was the
perfect bill of health? Perfect bill. All the things are just open and flowing blood. I'm just terribly out of shape. I think it's just that I'm like actually not in shape. I think my perception does not meet reality of my actual body. Like I think I'm like, well, I work out almost every day, and it's like, well, you're still out of shape. Like so that the diagnosis was I'm just not as good as I thought. But apparently my ticker is in top-notch shape either way. So
that's glad to hear it. Like I was starting to get tense there. Like I thought we were building up to some sort of terrible revelation, but
no, just a sweat problem, and general fatigue. So I'm healthy there, but
and I mean it makes sense because your heart is not belabored by pumping unnecessary amounts of blood to your brain, so it's probably making it
that's what it is. Thank you for reinstilling the fear that I have of the appointment.
That's what you call a callback.
That was good. It was
really good.
Or a runner. They call that a runner in the comedy business.
I appreciate that.
Learning so much already.
Yes, you will. Today, Andrew, you're going to learn so much more than you ever thought you could about offensive comedy as well.
But I do feel like I need to quickly give my version of the story. Now that I know that the people in the Discord are like, are they dead or whatever? No, I merely wish that I was. I'm currently in the phase of writing my dissertation that feels like swimming in a pool that has been filled with cold beef stew. It's very slow. It's very greasy. I'm unhappy literally all the time because even when I'm not writing the dissertation, I'm thinking about the dissertation. So that's going to be me until June. Yay.
Oh, fun. Yeah, that's
where I'm at. It's a process.
Yeah, see, I feel like I kind of dodged a bullet there because all of my friends have always told me like I would be well suited to academia, and like I am one of the few people I feel on the Discord who doesn't actually have a postgraduate degree. I got out of that brat race after getting my undergraduate degree, and all the anecdotes I've ever heard from everyone who carried on to get their master's or their PhD or whatever. Feels like I've escaped something.
Yeah, like my official position, and this is something I'm sure everyone who has a PhD candidate in their life has heard some version of the sentiment. I regret nothing, and I'm glad I'm doing it, and it's the most rewarding thing I've done. At the same time, if someone walked up to me and said, I'm thinking about grad school, I would tell them to absolutely not do it, for God's sake, run in the other direction. This
is it. I only make myself miserable with writing completely on my own terms. I'm not beholden to anyone else's deadlines.
Amen.
But no, so that's so good to know that you're finding it rewarding at any rate, and the animation community will be grateful for your sacrifices.
I hope so, and eventually I will be able to come on this podcast and I will be able to look at Rob and Carrie and I will be able to say, I'm sorry. It's Dr. Brayton to you.
That's what it's all for, isn't it? That's you've been the whole thing.
The thing I'm going to get out of it. Every person in my life will call me doctor.
Yeah.
Or they won't talk to me at all.
That's true. The funny thing is,
gotta be
a
tingle at the end of the day, hasn't it?
I bet.
You have this code of ethics, though. We, 8 years ago, were like, we're happy to call you doctor. You don't need to pay all this money and time. We'll call you whatever you want to call it. It's your own ethical, moral compass that has prevented you from being called it for years.
I am not a professor. I am not a doctor. And I will not call myself those things until I've earned those titles.
All right. Well, I'm probably not going to call you one once you get it. So we'll see. No, I'm kidding. I will.
Back when I was in high school, I was taking Taekwondo classes from just a local gym, just a local school. And one of the anecdotes I heard from my instructor was about a holder of a 7th degree black belt, I think it was, who actually insisted just in his civilian life, in his day-to-day office job, on having master so-and-so on all his office stationery and his the placard outside his door and so forth. I feel like that's I think that might be gilding the lily a little too much. But,
I mean, if you're learning Taekwondo from not an actual Taekwondo master in the mountains of China, I don't know.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm sure it took I'm sure it took that person just a titanic amount of work to get to that.
Oh, it certainly would. They don't give out 7th degree black belts in cereal boxes. So, if I had one, I would probably do the same. I'm not made of stone.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk about this stuff all day, but we are here to do something, and we're here to talk about movies. In fact, we're here to each talk about 5 of them. 5 total movies. So I hope you guys have your lists with you. And Andrew,
that was a long way around. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. And Andrew, this is your topic. Top 5 movie titles. And so I'm going to throw it to you because What does that mean? It could mean so many different things to so many different people. What does that mean? Good, bad, in between. I'm going to throw it to you to say, what is your criteria, Andrew, for what you think makes the list of top 5 movie titles?
Okay, yeah. So I've given this, some might say, too much thought. So what kind of drove me to choose this topic in the first instance was there is a movie, I think it's still in theaters at present, which is an action movie starring Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter, fighting off, I believe, mercenaries in an isolated island in the Philippines. I don't know. I haven't gone to see it. But what I know is that the executives in charge of selling this movie took a look at this scenario, this script, this thrill-a-minute, blow the barn door off sort of action thriller, and thought, what is the best way to market this to the general public? And the answer they landed on was plain. They called it plain, which is just like, that's dog shit, right?
It is the only time in my life that I've actually heard that a trailer has landed so badly when I was watching a trailer in the theater that multiple people in the auditorium like jeered and guffawed, and that happened on 2 separate screenings. That's how bad the title plain is.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Maybe it's good. I don't know. I haven't seen it, and I'm not going to, because I'm taking a stand against this title. Like it's just a coincidence of various things I object to. One, too simplistic, too pared down, too minimal. It's a single syllable of just a generic word, and the word is plain, which is, one, it sounds bad. It's just this one droopy, like flat vowel that just sort of plain falls out of your mouth without any sort of ceremony or any sort of flavor or texture. It's homophonous with plain, meaning boring, unflavored, unsalted Pringles. And also, by all accounts, most of the action takes place not on the airplane. The airplane crashes in the first act, from what I understand. So it's not only crap, it's disingenuous. So like it's the perfect storm of bad, of everything I don't want out of a movie title. So when I was thinking my criteria, I was sort of reverse engineering that and doing everything that doesn't do. I came up with 3 separate axes along which to grade a movie name. First, is it apt? Like, does it evoke the film's content? I don't necessarily need it to be descriptive, but I do want it to sort of sell me on the tone and the general timbre and the theme and the feeling of the film. Is it epic? Is it funny? Is it frivolous? Whatever the case may be. Second, does it do that in a way that entices me? Does it actually get me wanting to see what the actual text of the film is? And third, is it an interesting combination of words in its own right? Is it just fun to say aloud? Does it sound cool just when spoken? And obviously, I had a couple of caveats to forming my list. One, they couldn't be phrases derived from a source material, because if we're treating the title as part of the film's text, then we're giving the creators of the film credit for an act of creativity, essentially. So if you're just taking the title that's grandfathered in from a piece of source material or an IP that it's adapted from, then that doesn't count. For instance, one item that I really wanted to have on my list was an Indonesian film that came out last year, which has an amazing name. It would have made my list if it wasn't based on a book of the same name, which is Vengeance is Mine, All Others Pay Cash, which I want to see just on the strength of that name alone. But it's taken from a book, so that doesn't count. Also, it can't just be a literary reference. It can't be a literary allusion. Like, I thought about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but as is obviously identified in the film itself, that's a quote from a poem by Alexander Pope, so that's off the table. You can't just steal valor from a literary giant. So basically, I tried to narrow it down to 5 films that are instantly iconic, instantly interesting, instantly apt to their source material, and which represent an act of creativity on the part of the people who made the film. That's where I came down.
Wowzers.
So
that's good criteria.
So, like, as I say, too much thought, but I'm interested to hear you guys take.
Well, Tim,
I mean,
I assume yours was very similar and that you took that level of rigor. So
it is pretty similar. I would say that my criteria maybe are in a different order. Fun to say out loud is probably my number one.
Okay.
Like I want it to be like something that I can sort of chew on the syllables. I can have fun with it. It's poetry. It just kind of flows off the tongue in a nice way. Not necessarily because it's complicated. It could be, if it's a short, concise, nice, tidy little title, but it's like it works. Like the movie HUD came so close to making my list. It doesn't make my list. But like HUD, HUD. That's a good. That's like a big old just granite rock of a title.
No,
were you saying something, Carrie? I couldn't hear you.
Oh yeah, what is HUD? That all that does is leave me being like, what is this? I don't even know what a HUD is.
HUD is the name of the Paul Newman character in this 1963 film.
But you wouldn't know that. So I'm going to the theater and I'm like, oh, what do I want to see today?
Well,
and it's
the poster says Paul Newman is HUD, so you would be able to guess it.
Okay, all right.
But like I just like it. It's just this real like boom, like sort of a crack of doom sort of title. Didn't include that, but I'm saying that's the sort of thing. It doesn't have to be like doesn't have to be a world tour where I'm going around 3-4 times getting through the title. But I did have a couple of those. I completely agree. It cannot be based on source material. It has to be original to the movie, which actually HUD is another example that was adapted from a text not titled HUD. So it's a trade up in that case. Mm-hmm. It does have to make me want to see the film, if not because I think the content is going to be interesting, because at least there's a level of, well, I have to see what has that title. Like sure. I'm just curious. I would say that I didn't go with any literary references, but I would not be ipso facto opposed to literary references, like the one that leaps to my mind when you were talking, Andrew. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Oh, which is the title of a film from 2007. Quote from a very famous Irish aphorism, but no one had ever made it the title of a film before. So, I think they get credit for that.
That's more murky.
Not on my list, though. Not on my list. But I would otherwise say I'm pretty much where you are. It has to make me want to see the film. It has to, in some way, actually suggest to me what the film is going to be about, if not necessarily as a description, then sort of evoking a mood. And I'll also say I set a limit for myself, which is it would have been trivially easy for me to have made this a list of 5 Italian genre films. And I'm like, well, that's not imaginative. So I
set myself the exact same limit.
I'm giving myself 1 Italian giallo, one horror movie, and 1 Italian Western, and no more. That is it. 2 Italian films total.
Interesting. We'll get to this as we go. Okay. Yes. Very, very fully agreed.
Yes.
On those caveats.
What about yourself, Carrie? What is your very long, complicated?
It's completely uncomplicated. I don't have any of those criteria baked in. I think I probably have all of the criteria broken on my own list, because really I just broke it down into different categories of what makes a title either good or bad. So I have like a little bit of an awards category for each one, and because I didn't want to have like top, 5 great titles. I wanted to have like, what's something that makes this title stand out, and maybe that's a good thing, and maybe it's not. So like, what makes it really recognizable? So I have sort of like categories that I built out to try and keep them a little bit unique. So we'll get there. Okay,
but
other than that, it's good, it's bad, it's everything in between. It's silly. I don't know, but we'll get to the categories as we go. But with that, Andrew, you got to take the lead here. Start us off. What is your number 5 movie title?
Okay. So, right. Now, my number 5, and like yourself, Carrie, I did have categories that I sort of wanted to get to. I had a few different sort of styles of title that I wanted to include. And one that I definitely knew I wanted was a sci-fi film from the 50s, just because I feel like American science fiction films from that first wave had a really sort of blunt sensationalism that I found very appealing. That sort of, they read like tabloid headlines from the sort of situations they describe. Stuff like "It Came from Outer Space" or "When Worlds Collide." It's very in your face. Here's the cool thing that you're going to see when you go to the theater. And some of them work better than others. But the one I landed on was what I feel is sort of the classiest, most interesting version of that sort of ethos of naming films, and that is 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still, which very iconic, obviously, in hindsight, which I feel like it's easy to underrate how well that's selling the film's premise, which is obviously the notion of the alien Klaatu, its first contact scenario coming down and basically introducing himself to the world's affairs, basically determining whether or not humankind will be extinguished because of the way it's destroying itself with nuclear proliferation. I think the film's title is effective because it gets across this notion of, we don't know how literal this is if you're turning up to a matinee at the theater in 1951. You know, the Day the Earth Stood Still, are we talking literally? It could be. It's a sci-fi movie. Maybe the Earth has actually literally stopped on its axis, or maybe it's speaking allegorically. You know, it's an event that sort of captures the attention of all the world at one time. And either way, it's a sort of massive. It communicates the sense of grave importance and solemnity, and how the entire world is resting on tenterhooks in the face of this first contact scenario. So I think it's a really elegant, poetic way of communicating that concept. So that's my number 5.
Oh, right. Is this the one where the guy comes down, it's black and white, and then he like comes off, and then it's like sitting in the park. His ship is just sort of like hanging out. Oh yeah, that was exactly a good one. I liked that one. Good pick.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Yeah.
I like that both in and of itself, and I also think it dovetails really nicely into my number 5.
Okay.
Because one of the things that's really well constructed, I think, about the title, The Day the Earth Stood Still, that is 6 monosyllables, right? Like, it is, as a construction of language, every word is this kind of perfectly formed individual syllable. And I think rhythmically, one of the things that I like in a title is when it actually does kind of have the words fit together that way.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but that's true now I look at it. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it because my number 5 is also it's 4 monosyllables. But it is, part of what I like about it is that each one of those syllables just kind of feels like a big, like, obsidian monolith just kind of lying there in all of its gloomy grandeur. And in fact, this is the reason I don't have HUD as my number 5 is because I was like, well, I could have HUD, which is one HUD, or I could have basically 4 HUDs in a row. And that is, for me at least, the title of the 2007 film Best Picture nominee, beloved movie, There Will Be Blood.
I like this. Yes.
It's just it's a declaration. It immediately lets you know just doom is coming. Not just because, you know, blood is something that we don't want there to be, but just saying it out loud, like you can sort of feel the weight of it. Like, there will be blood. And it's to me just, it just kind of makes me feel a little shivery every time I encounter it in the wild.
Yeah, I get that. And also, what I like about that is that it's about, you know, drilling for oil. So you have this sort of, it dovetails into that sense of the earth itself is bleeding. You've got that sort of... and in fact, adapted from a novel titled Oil. And perfect example of, I mean, oil's a good, solid meat and potatoes sort of title. There Will Be Blood is very obviously a trade up from Oil. Like, oh, sure. I would be very alarmed by someone who did not agree that this is a better title than the 1927 Upton Sinclair novel did. So. Oh, definitely. Good pick.
Very good. And I'm going to stay on the same train as you guys with the monosyllabic thingy. 4 monosyllabic words. I did it unintentionally. I just picked this one because I thought it was the best bait and switch. The title of this movie did not indicate what I was getting, and what I wanted was not there. So I'd call it best hook, best bait and switch, but not a movie that I got what I wanted. I thought this movie was going to be a little bit sexy. I thought this movie was going to be a little bit, like, I don't know what I thought this movie was going to be, but it was not. And this is the movie Kiss Kiss, Bang Bang.
Okay. Yeah,
it wasn't sexy.
I can get behind that, I think. Yeah, it's it has that sort of playful, sort of like almost cheeky quality to it, like putting across this sort of like it's a riff on old Pulp Fiction, old detective fiction. Those sort of sensationalistic elements just boiled down to their fundamental essence. So yeah, I get behind that.
Yeah, and where were the kisses? Where were the bangs? There were bangs, but they were different.
There are bangs.
There were different bangs than I expected. I was expecting a different bang.
I do like this title, like even unironically. Like, it obviously doesn't sell the content of the movie, but I think it flows well. It's worth pointing out, I think Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is it's sort of a very deep cut cinephile joke. Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang was how the character of James Bond was marketed in Japan.
That's a deep cut.
This is and Shane Black would know that because he's that kind of person. But like it's basically a very no one's going to get this but me and my six buddies sort of reference to a 1960s Japanese marketing campaign, essentially.
Oh, I like it. And like it's probably the only podcast where you really want to be able to identify that just off the cuff. Yeah.
It's because I had a soundtrack CD of James Bond theme songs, and there was in fact a song recorded, I think, for Thunderball, Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it's really quite a good song if you like that sort of like weirdly dumb sounding Japanese pop.
Oh man, I kind of do. Yeah. And can I just say, like, not related to the title, there's barely a day goes by that I don't think about the Russian roulette scene from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So, good movie.
Different bang.
Wait, were you going to say something?
Bang. No, I was just going to say that I was. No, it's fine. I was just going to call out that fact, just like right before you did, is what I was going to say. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But I'm glad
next time I'll wait until I'm sure you've said your piece.
Thank you. I'll share the history of these films as they come. But I'm glad you jumped in there because it's a team effort around here. But I'm glad you liked my movie. I'm riding a high right now. Yeah. It's all downhill from here. So just mentally prepare yourselves. But back to you, Andrew, at number 4. What do you have?
Okay, so another category I guess I wanted to hit was I wanted to get just a really good, crunchy, sensationalistic horror movie on my list. One that actually comes from a native English-speaking writer. And to that end, I was looking to the environment of mid-century British horror movies. Coming off the back of the 50s and 60s, obviously we have a ton of great Hammer horror movie titles. Stuff like Taste the Blood of Dracula or The Devil Rides Out or Quatermass in the Pit. They're all very lurid and basically promising all these sort of taboo elements, you know, the occultism and vampirism and what have you. But it is not actually a Hammer horror film that I chose. What I ended up going with was a Hammer competitor that emerged towards the tail end of the 60s. This is a film that comes from Tygon Productions, which began life as what was supposed to be an anthology film titled Satan's Skin. But in the process of production, it was retitled, and I think it is unmistakably a trade-up to the folk horror movie The Blood on Satan's Claw, which, to paraphrase Oscar Wilde, is just metal as fuck. That is such, like, it just communicates the occultism of it so well. You've got one article, one preposition, 3 nouns, and those are blood, Satan, and claw. Like, that's about as concentrated a hit of like transgressive, just gnarly, violent images as you can get in the space of 5 words. And I also just like the sort of forensic element of it. Just the detail is in the film that, you know, somebody discovers a skull in a field in England that turns out to possess some sort of occult power, and all the kids in the village start behaving strangely. I don't actually love the film, but I think the title sells it so well that you'd be hard-pressed to resist going in to just find out what it's all about. So that's my number 4, The Blood on Satan's Claw.
I have not seen this film, and it's actually one of a very small number of films that I have not seen specifically because the title is so good. that I know it will disappoint me because it will not be as good as its title.
Yeah, I'm sad. Yeah, but I don't think anything could reasonably live up to that title. I actually just looked up some of the other films that Tygon Productions would go on to produce subsequently further down the 70s and 80s, and they get very crass very quickly. I think they were delving pretty hard into the pornography by the time they stopped producing, but in those early days, they really hit a winner on that one.
Right.
What about you, Carrie? Would you want to see a movie called The Blood on Satan's Claw?
You know, that's what I was just thinking, is like everything Andrew said so far, just the title alone would be like, no, I'm not seeing that. Like the first one too, I'm like, no. Like that's where you got to get me on the bait and switch. You got to just be like, you know, Satan's Day Out. Satan heading to lunch, you know, something like that. And then I get in there.
Satan's Big Adventure.
Satan's Big Adventure. And then I get in there and it's like, oh, there's blood all over his claws. And I was like, well, I just thought he was going to go for a nice sandwich. And so that's the only way you'd get me in. So.
Fair. But like that means the title's doing its job. So
True.
I think that's still a point in its favor.
That is fair. Okay, Tim, try and top it. What do you got that's so much better than Satan with bloody hands?
Well, I mean, I love that Andrew, you and I are sort of following along because, like, you know, the first one had those overlaps. Now the second one, not a great movie, maybe even actually a bad movie. In fact, definitely a bad movie, but a movie where when I heard the title for the first time, my immediate response was, well, I'm going to see that the first opportunity I get. It's a title that feels just designed to be delightful, even though you know that the film itself is going to be this complete throwaway. This is for a 1937 thriller parody. So it's a detective movie. These two people are trying to find a criminal, and they're wacky. It's Hugh Herbert's one of the guys. I forget who the other guys are, but it's this really junk shop 30s comedy. But its title, and it has an exclamation point.
Oh,
and exclamation points are one of those things in titles that I'm just like, yeah. You have an exclamation point there. Its title is The Octopus. And when you encounter the existence in the wild of a film called The Octopus, first off, you have to say it that way. I can't call the film The Octopus. You have to say exclamation point, The Octopus. And I know this is true because when I did watch this movie on Turner Classic Movies many, many years ago, the late lamented Robert Osborne, when he was introducing the film, kept saying the title exactly that way. And like, he could not keep the grin off his face. And he's a professional. His job is to come in there and show these movies. And he's just like a child on Christmas morning saying the title of The Octopus over and over again. And it worked on me. It's like, well, I have to see that movie.
That's brilliant.
No, it's shitty. It's a bad movie, but it's got a real just grab you and pull you in sort of title to me.
No, that's I like that. I feel like I've come across that title before, but I had no idea what it was referring to. So yeah, now it's intrigued. It's one I'm going to have to repeat. I'm going to have to find an excuse to repeat it at a party or something.
Absolutely. And I've talked about it a couple times, so it's possible you've encountered it on the site, but never out loud. And now that I am saying it out loud, I'm going to say it one last time.
It's one that definitely has more appeal spoken than in print, I feel.
It sure does.
Yeah.
The Octopus.
The Octopus.
It's just The Octopus?
Yes. The Octopus.
Okay. I might see that. I'm over anything you've already talked about.
It's garbage. I assure you, it is garbage.
Okay. I won't. I'm going to go into one that I think you guys have seen and I have not. My number 4 is one that I refuse to see because of the title. And I get a little bit even antsy just even thinking about it. And I had to do like very minimal research on it. It's the first one that came to my mind when this topic came up because I'm afraid of what would come up if I were to Google it based on said title.
Not every single word you've said though so far leads me to assume it's a pornography film.
Oh,
and it's titled like Nubile Ass Pounding 17 or something like that.
No, again, I told you I wanted to see Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and that wasn't what it was. I didn't go, I'm fine with that. This one's so much worse. So much worse. And I'll even say I'm so paranoid about this movie and the potential of what it would be that I have trouble. You guys are going to think this is absurd. I can't even hit what do you call that when you're sending a text message? Like an emoji? Like, when you're sending a text message with a picture of the thing. I can't tap the picture of this thing because I think it'll get me. Like, I'm like really afraid. And so this one, I don't even like to say it, is the spoiler alert category because it's the most on the nose. I already know everything that it's about and I don't want to see it. And this is Snakes on a Plane.
Okay, yeah.
There's no chance. Like, there's no chance.
I thought this one would come up at some point. Yes.
Is this on anyone else's lists?
I thought about it. I truly thought about it.
Are there snakes? Are there snakes in this movie?
There are most certainly.
There are snakes, and they are on a plane.
Yes. So I will give the movie this. I did see Snakes on the Plane back in the day when it came out, largely on account of the title's promise. I will say, like, I probably should have caveated this up front, and this is just a taste thing. I was trying to avoid movies where the title was sort of the cart leading the horse.
Yeah.
Where I wanted to avoid novelty titles, like similarly Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, where the title is the most salient and notable thing about the product.
Agree.
Because that feels like, I don't know, it feels like that would be low-hanging fruit in a way.
Totally. Well, that's why I had it. I'm like, it's such an absurd title, but it's a title that also has stuck with me from the moment it released. I was like, I will never watch a preview of this movie. I will never watch a trailer. I'll never watch this movie. I used to have those like wildlife cards when I was a kid. Like, my mom got them for us, and you'd go through and you'd be like, oh, I want to look at like the koala and like the lemur and like whatever. And inevitably it was like, there is a snake in that deck of cards. And eventually I just had to like throw away the whole thing because I didn't know where the snake card was to get it out. And
why didn't you just throw away the snakes?
Because I'd have to get to the snake card in order to like find it, and then I'd have to see it, and I couldn't even touch the card that the snake was on in order to like put it in the garbage. So I had to like just throw the whole thing away. Because
like that is an intense degree of aphiophobia. Like,
is that what it is?
Aphiophobia. That's like, I will give you this, Carrie. I have been jumped at by a rattlesnake in real life.
Oh my gosh.
So since that moment, I have whenever I'm walking around, if I see a vaguely snake-shaped stick on the ground, I will sometimes do a double take, even though there are no snakes in Scotland. Like, I just sort of have that sort of like just twitch reflex. So I sympathize. I feel your pain.
Same.
I was once at the Madison Zoo in their reptile house, and they have a green anaconda. And the water level in the green anaconda aquarium is at roughly my eye level. So about 5'6", 5'7", wherever my eyes are. And so I'm wandering around, and I walk over to the green anaconda cage or aquarium. It's like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna look at an anaconda. I like that. And it was just hanging out in the water, just floating as anacondas do. But like, its nose was right at water level, which is also what anacondas do. So its eyes were at my eye level. So I wandered over there without really knowing what I was doing, and I was staring eye to eye with a green anaconda, and I was like, oh, I'm an ape from the plains and he wants to eat me. And I'd never had that so intensely in my life. Like, I'm just a fucking monkey.
Yeah.
And this thing eats monkeys. And I was transfixed. I got it. Like the thing where like small animals like get hypnotized by looking into snakes. I'm like, oh, that happens. So
like you were Mowgli and Kaa from the jungle.
A little bit.
A Mowgli moment. Tim, have also passed that facility that you went in at the zoo, and I am both a terrible mother and just, there's a whole bunch of levels to process here, but my kids, I'm trying not to pass on my own fears. So like when they were really little, probably too little to be wandering around in the reptile unit by themselves, they were like, can we go in, Mommy? Can we go look at the whatever is in here? And I knew what was in there, and I was like, I'm gonna open the door for you, and I'm gonna go to the other side of the exit, and you just peruse around, and then I'll meet you outside. But honestly, if push came to shove and they didn't come out, like they were in there for a really long time, maybe they were abducted, maybe they were eaten, I don't really know, there isn't a way in which I would have gone in for them. Like I would have just like just call it what it was and just like let it be, because there's zero chance I will ever go in that reptile house that you went into. Just pure fear. But I digress.
Well,
Made for a good movie.
I want to end on two thoughts.
Yes.
One, Snakes on a Plane is a terrific title, I think. Again, 4 monosyllables. It's very sensible. It's like a sleek black dress that's not calling attention to itself, but it's also like secretly you're one of the best dressed people at the party, in a way.
Yeah.
Other thing is, if you can't watch movies that have any quantity of snakes in them, Carrie, how in Christ's name do you like the Indiana Jones
I knew
movies?
you were going to ask me that. I knew you were going to call me out. And what I do is I don't look. So like that falls into that same category of like, I've never actually seen them turn to the skeleton or like have their faces peeled off or like the monkey eyeball soup. Like all of that's just word of mouth. Like where my dad's like, hey, there's a snake scene that's coming, close your eyes. So for years, whenever the dinner scene in Temple of Doom happens, it's just pure audio. So I'm sort of like hearing, so like I know what's happening through audio, but like I'm not even talking about
that, like the Well of Souls and Raiders.
I know.
That's like 8 minutes consecutive.
Yeah, haven't seen it.
That's like uninterrupted snakes.
Haven't seen it. No.
It's just coming back to me now that Carrie believes Temple of Doom is the 3rd goriest film in cinematic history. So
that's right.
This is adding up now.
That's right.
See, I never lie.
I have a friend who is just as bad with snakes as you are. She doesn't watch those movies, period.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like she like hides her eyes. She like just doesn't deal with them.
Yes.
So it sounds like you have some ways to go before you're the true snake phobe.
I don't know. It's pretty intense. I will say the one snake scene in there that like still haunts me to this day. And right now I'm actually feeling like a little bit of like a visceral reaction even thinking about it is in the beginning, like it's like the beginning scene, you know, when he's on the train, it's young Indiana Jones and he's on the train and then he gets in and he falls down and like he gets in that snake pit, like he falls in the train car and then he's coming out and like as it comes out of his shirt, like when this little like small snake comes out of his shirt, I was just like, I just have to burn my eyeballs. Like that was just like heebie-jeebies. Like I think I had bad dreams for days. It was awful. But like, yeah, I have to, like, I have it really well timed on when to open and close my eyes during those gory scenes within Indiana Jones. So
for sure.
All right. Well, that was my number 4, which I think, Andrew, takes us to your number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is, it's probably the black sheep on my list insofar as it is not an elegant title. It's quite the opposite. It's very unwieldy. It's very it's very difficult to recall, almost like on purpose. And this is because this is a film that's obviously looking at blurring the lines between its fiction and its reality. It's a mockumentary. And the title is part of the gag. It's actually what sets up the gag that precedes the rest of the film. And this is, and I had to write this down to make sure that I was getting it all right when I recite it. This is Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit, Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. Which obviously, like the fact, I mean, we've all seen Borat, right? We're all familiar with the gag in Borat, that it's poking fun at ignorant Westerners and their concept of what these sort of tin pot Eastern Bloc countries are actually like. And I feel like that title just encapsulates the humor of Borat so nicely. The fact that it's so unwieldy, the fact that it's broken English, the fact that it's using words like glorious nation, these sort of like almost dog whistle phrases that just play into our ignorant presuppositions about what these countries that we know nothing about, the way they think, the way they operate. And it just, I love the portability of it as well, because you can reduce it just down to Borat and everyone knows what you're talking about. But the actual full title is such a great primer for the gag of the film. So that's my number 3.
So good.
And I think even particularly well treated, just like as an object, a visual object, because the title is given to us as this kind of very crummy looking auto-generated subtitle, basically.
Yeah.
Part of the joke there is that like there's a lot of movies whose title sounds very good in its native language, and then it gets run through some sort of horrible cheapjack distributor who renders it into English in the most crudely literal way possible. So you end up with these awful sounding titles, which sort of makes the film seem stupider and cheaper than they are. And I think that's kind of a layer to the joke as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're familiar, Tim, with the Zatoichi films, and how those are all brought over as Zatoichi and the Fire Festival, or Zatoichi, the Samaritan. Like, it always makes the content sound so much more boring than it probably sounds in Japanese. It's that kind of thing. So, it's a very good meta gag in the first instance. I like the fact that I think, if I'm remembering rightly, on the DVD cover, it's all rendered in this sort of cod Cyrillic.
Yes,
which plays into the blurring of those boundaries as well.
Absolutely.
Love it. Such a good pick. And I never expected to love this movie. On a side note, I don't usually like make movies where people are making fun of something, but this was so good. It's such a good movie. And I don't mind getting made fun of at me, it's making fun at, like you said, Westerners, and it's just like, oh, the absurdity, the truth, is absurd, and it's like the fact that so much of it is true just is even more horrifying and cringeworthy, but it's so funny. I still sometimes think about his buddy, the naked guy.
Yes, yeah.
And I can still see his butt crack in my mind, and I just love it. That whole scene, I think I had tears. It was one of those few movies where you're just like, I can't breathe. I'm laughing so hard. And I don't have those all the time. It was so good. So funny.
Same. It's one of those films where the cringe comedy is so intense that even though it's hysterically funny, I can't quite bring myself to go back and watch it again. So I'm mostly basing this on my memory of the film rather than having seen it recently, but that's definitely how I feel about it.
For sure.
So good. All right, Tim, give us your number 3. I think it's going to match to one of mine.
Well, this is very exciting because you're all going to get to hear me trot out my very confident and very bad Italian accent. This is my first Italian movie. I said I had 2. I think I did a very good job of holding off all the way until number 3. This is my Italian Western. And one of the first things I wrote down, literally the second title I wrote down, was the title of a Sartana film. And I was happy with it. And the Sartana films are all very these big old marathon length, curly cued, 6 different clauses go into one movie title. And I thought about it. And it's as good as the title of Have a Good Funeral, My Friend, Sartana Will Pay is, at a certain point I was like, it's trying really hard. And I realized I was overlooking something much simpler, but in its own way, just as powerful, just as evocative, just as sort of beautifully florid in its Italian way, while being much less showy. And I think it's easy to overlook this title because it is not an obscure title. It's a very, very famous film. So it felt too familiar to me, but I mean, part of the reason it works, part of the reason this is such a famous film title is because it's a perfect film title. And so that is why my number 3 is the 1966 Sergio Leone film, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Or in Italian, which reverses the ugly and the bad because it sounds better in Italian, just like Good, Bad, and the Ugly sounds better in English. Il buono, il brutto, il cattivo.
See, Tim, I disagree with you only insofar as this is not my number 3, it's my number 1.
This is the one when Carrie's like, there will be no overlap. I'm like, I'll bet someone else has The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes, and I can't really expand upon that any better than you already have, Tim. But yes, this is the thing is it's such a perfect formulation. It's so mythical. It's so archetypal. It's it sets up this sort of very black and white moral universe, but also adds that sort of ironic twist on the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's one of those ones where you just saying it aloud just sort of puts across the sort of grit and the grandeur of Sergio Leone's spectacle. Absolutely. So yeah, what can I say? It's perfect.
And part of the irony built into it is that if you didn't have the on-screen titles informing you who was good, who was bad, and who was ugly, you would sort of have to wonder, because they're all bad. Maybe they're not all ugly, and none of them are good.
No. Eli Wallach, I think, sort of does make a pretty strong case for himself. But
I think so.
Do you think it's ugly, though? Or do you think it's like, when someone's being kind of rude, you're like, well, they're being a little bit ugly?
Actually, I think that is the case. I think the Italian word would sort of move us towards like more crude and sort of bestial ugly. If I'm not mistaken, I'm not a speaker of Italian, so I might be wrong about that.
No, I mean, I actually didn't realize that the order was flipped in Italian. I'd heard the Italian title before, but I didn't understand
the
that.
words refer to the same people. Like good is Eastwood, bad is Lee Van Cleef. Lee Van Cleef, and ugly is Wallach, but the title is closer to the good, the ugly, the bad, and there's no "and" in the Italian.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll make that case, because otherwise it feels a little rude. Like, who would want to sign up for a movie if you were like, "Hey, which one am I?" And they're like, "Oh, you're the ugly one." Like, that feels like, why would I want to sign up for that? So I'm sure they pitched it to
I think if you're Eli Wallach, you do not live under any misapprehensions.
I don't know what he looks like. I'm going to look him up right now. Eli, how do I spell that? Eli.
W-A.
Oh, it's W.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. W-A-L-L-A-C-H.
Yeah. Good, the bad, the ugly. All right. You know what? I just didn't type any of that right, but I will not take the time. I will look later, and I bet I'll think he's cute. So we'll find out.
In fairness, I think the cinematography in a spaghetti western makes everyone look so sweaty and greasy just by default all the time in the intense Spanish sun that I don't think he was particularly... He wasn't framed in an especially flattering way by the cinematography.
You know what? And I can empathize with that after my own experience, of running naked in the sun.
So, Carrie.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Take us back to your list.
You know what? It is going to get ugly. It actually did start with the good. It's about to move to the bad, I think, because you guys don't agree with me on this one. And I'm just going to be like, I don't care. Like, this is another one that came to mind right out of the gate of just like, this met my most clever category. And you're going to say it's not clever because you're going to say it was taken from somebody else and it was adapted. And I'm going to be like, you know what? You didn't think to take it from somebody else and adapt it. So this person did. I don't know who did, the director, writer of this movie, but I love the title of this movie. I think about it all the time, and I think about what I would do in this movie all the time. And all of it is summed up in the title, which is what I think makes the most sense. Ignorance is bliss, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as I said, I did consider this one. And I do love the combination of the words. I think it's a very elegant, mellifluous phrase. I think it gets at the content of the film in a really nice, abstract, elusive way. Just as I say, like, obviously, I just decided against it just because it was cribbing from Alexander Pope. But I could easily have seen this onto my list if I wasn't sort of placing that stipulation upon myself.
So good. Yeah. So good. If you had to choose, Andrew, would you wipe your brain or would you keep it? Would you keep the memories, even if they were so, so bad? What would you do?
Oh, let's get to the end of this recording and I'll be able to tell you an answer.
Fair. I have decided over time that I'm going to wipe my brain, but we will get there over time as well. But I think it's time to head for a break. Andrew probably has to go get some tea, use the restroom. Who knows?
Oh, because he's from the UK? You racist.
What? I am drinking tea too. But I also, and I'm not even from the Middle East, but I am drinking tea as well. But therefore, let's head to a break. But before we do head to our break, you might be wondering about ways to support the show. You can join Patreon and get early access to exclusive content, make us watch a movie, pick your own episode topic, and more from our Patreon website, just like so many people did this month. Henry O, Benjamin Ross Johnson, Tyler T, Joshua Graves, Pip Smith, all picked up the Emmy Award level, entitling them to those exclusive TV reviews, classic movie reviews, and so much more. And this podcast shout out that you're hearing right now. Also, want to thank everybody who's celebrating their anniversaries with us. We have Max Jacobson, Denise Everett, Alex Frith, Joseph, Simon Proud, Rob's mom, which is weird. I should probably tell her that she's still a Patreon. She probably doesn't want to be. I will let her know. Also,
Speaking of, I recently canceled my Patreon subscription to our site.
You were unpublished anyway, Tim, at the tier that you were at. So thank you for figuring out how to log in. I appreciate that. We also have Not Fenimore celebrating longtime supporter. Diego Santamaria, also longtime supporter. Kevin Riggle, Daniel Schuster. Andrew, it's also your anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Go figure.
To you.
Anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is why we are doing your topic this month.
It's actually not, but it is nice. It is nice. And then also Looney Game Master and Aaron and Dell. Happy anniversary, and thanks for being a part of Alternate Ending. Also, want to let everybody know that coming up this month, we have on February 22nd, our next movie club trivia night that will be hosted by Brennan Klein. Come join us for that. It is always terrible, but also fun to lose to all of you at trivia. I really enjoy it.
I'm so glad you said that out loud. I thought it was this coming Wednesday, and hearing you say that makes me feel like I just had a stay of execution.
Is
and
that a
that the
good thing?
governor just hung up and I'm not going to be executed anymore. I
Oh,
feel so good.
Is it because you're worried you're going to continue to lose to others like you did the last couple times, or what is it?
It's because if I had one more obligation on my time at this point, I would erupt
I see.
like an overripe grape all over my apartment.
Please don't until we're off video. Please don't. So thank you all so much again for your continued support. Now, going to pivot a bit. There's something jangling around in your sack this month. And it may have been jangling there last month, but I did see it this month. And it's from Brian Fowler. You guys can both answer this. It means nothing to me, this question. So I hope that it means something to you. It's random. It's a random question, self-described. Something Tim said almost a decade ago. This could be concerning. I've heard a lot of things that you might want to forget.
Because we were using different vocabulary 10 years ago. We hadn't gotten woke yet.
That is true. But he's curious to know, did you ever read Speaker for the Dead?
Actually, I did not. And I know what this is in reference to. This is the second film of the Orson Scott Card series about Ender. The first one being, of course, Ender's Game. So it would have been in my review of the movie Ender's Game. Terrible movie. I never did. I'm sorry. I wish there was a more complicated answer to that.
Just wondered. He just wondered. Just wanted to check in. Have you, Andrew? Have you read it?
No, sadly, which is it's kind of in my wheelhouse. I haven't actually touched the Ender's Game series, even though it's very much the kind of SF that I would often gravitate towards. I'm kind of cagey about that. Just Orson Scott Card being Orson Scott Card. So, like, speaking of woke, that's the kind of thing that you tend to gravitate away from if you're wanting to be like a good sort of ally a lot of the time. But no, I've not touched. I did see the movie when it came out, but I've not touched the books.
All right. Well, thank you. If you have a question for Tim Sack, you can submit those questions to contact@alternateending.com. And then last, we've got another way that you can always support Alternating, and that's through our Amazon banner. We always thank you for going out there, making your purchases through our site. Doing it is easy. You can go out there, click on our Amazon banner, and seamlessly go about your purchases. All proceeds go to making our show better. I realized that the Amazon read is one of my largest sources of life anxiety, so what I'm going to do is just a little bit of a pick and choose, because it's just so many words, and then I get a little bit flummoxed. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's how I feel internally, and so
You know what we should do? You and Rob should generate the text of the Amazon read and send it to me, because I have absolutely no compunction about insulting the things that our listeners buy on there. Because half of them are my mom anyway, and she doesn't listen to the show.
Did your mom buy Time Out of Joint? I think it's maybe about a book about getting high. Did she buy that?
Probably not.
No? Well, did she buy any
Probably not my mom.
aloe hand sanitizer?
Could easily be my mom.
Pack of 4. Thank you for that. I'm going to just jump around a little bit, to be honest, so I don't go through. There's so many, but we do really, really appreciate it. It does help a bunch. Somebody's out there buying a SodaStream, just so you know, and the refills for it. We just got one for Christmas. I thought I was going to hate it, and I think I love it. I think I love the SodaStream. It's fizzy water whenever you want it.
I really want a carbonation rig, but I also want one where I can carbonize anything, not just water, and I don't think you can do that with the Soda Stream.
I'm pretty sure there's a significant difference between carbonate and carbonize. Like,
You're correct.
This is me.
Carbonate.
If you're buying a carbonizing rig for your house, that may be a fire hazard.
That is an excellent point. It is a good point.
And thank you for correcting him. I wouldn't have known, and so I'm glad that you did. The thing that I would probably buy that's on here if I was buying one thing is this hexagon bee kitchen towel set. I love bees. And so thank you to who also loves bees that's a listener for buying your towels here.
We need a new piece of AE merch, and it needs to be your face with the word "I love bees!" ! Underneath it. And that's it. That's the shirt.
I'll buy it. We all need to love the bees a little bit more than we do. A couple other things too. Someone's out there buying like honeybee brooches. Gosh, this person just loves bees, and it's in gold.
This could also fairly easily be my mother.
Gosh, I've always thought that your mom and I have a lot in common with our.
Well, you see, her brother likes bees. He's a beekeeper.
Would he wear a brooch? Would you say?
His wife would wear a brooch.
His wife would wear a brooch. Okay, who would?
It's very very environmentally responsible these days, isn't it?
Agreed.
Beekeeping. Exactly.
Well, thank you all again for your purchases. When we get back, our number 1 and 2 picks for the best movie titles of all time. Welcome back to Alternate Ending. We're back with our number 1 and 2 picks of the best movies of all time. Oh, wait. Not best movies of all time. The best titles of all time.
Yes.
Which maybe they're one and the same. Because, I mean, maybe I love my 1 and 2. I don't know. Maybe that's what sold them on me, were these amazing movie titles. But yeah, I've got a couple on here that I'm excited to talk about that I think might match up with you guys a little bit unknown. Maybe. I think maybe Andrew and I'm zoning in on it. I feel a slight, it's like that snake. We're just making eye contact right now. And I think our number ones will be on each other's list, but we'll see. We'll find out. But
to be clear, the eye contact with the snake was not a positive experience.
I just
want to make sure that's understood.
I thought you were saying you were having like a connection, like you're having a nature connection. You thought it was going to eat you.
I felt like prey. I felt like I was going to have something clutch its fangs onto my throat and murder me and eat me.
Oh, okay.
No,
different.
It's not nice.
Thus connecting me to nature by being digested in its belly.
I see. Different look. It's a different look that we're experiencing here. But
just ask John Voight. John Voight did not have a good time with it.
He had a very bad time with Anaconda.
Did he have a snake bite? In real life?
He's in a motion picture called Anaconda.
Oh, sure. You know what? I don't want to get on a sidetrack, but I've just been watching a lot of John Voight movies lately. I like him. He's kind of a cutie. Who knew?
Yeah. Great actor and great human being.
Is he really? Because I was hoping he is.
Absolutely not.
Oh. No. He just looks like a cute little man. I've been watching National Treasure. I've never seen that before, so I've been watching it, and it's sequels all week, and he seems just kind of like a second-rate Sean Connery, you know?
Yeah. Also, great human being.
Also. Great.
Famously so.
Don't tell me what John Voight did. I'm not Googling, just like the snakes. I don't want to know. But what I do want to know is Andrew. You're number 2.
Okay, so this will obviously be my final pick because my number 1's been burned. But I'm also going a little bit out on a limb here with my number 2 pick because this is actually one I have not seen. I'm going to get round to it. I'm sold on it largely on account of the title, I have to admit. And this is my Giallo pick. This is the... obviously, I barely have to explain to our listenership. I'm sure the AE commentariat realized that there's so many great poetic, lurid, just instantly intriguing titles that you get from the Italian horror industry. And narrowing it down to just one is a task in and of itself. But the one I ended up going with was, I actually have 2 films on my list from 1971 by sheer coincidence. And this is Lucio Fulci's A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, which I mean, it's that expression on Carrie's face right now that communicates it, doesn't it? It's just such a nice, it's just all these sibilant syllables just lined up in a row. It's just so it is just like the mouthfeel of it is great just to start with. The imagery, it captures that sort of giallo sense of the uncanny, where even though, as far as I'm aware, nothing in the film's plot is actually supernatural or paranormal, there's sort of that vague intimation of something going on that's exotic and strange and unaccounted for. There's the sort of sublimated misogyny of it, this sort of fear of female sexuality and the sort of idea of women being somehow inherently duplicitous, with this idea of this doppelganger moving in our midst, and just the sort of psychosexual element of giallo just summed up so nicely in that one just lurid, florid phrase. It's just a fun title.
It's one of the all-time great giallo titles. Obviously, as I said, I only have 2 Italian films. This is not the other Italian film I have, although it's a great one. It's a great title, an old-timer, while also not even being my favorite title of a Lucio Fulci film.
This is promising.
My favorite Lucio Fulci title for sure is "Don't Torture a Duckling."
Interesting. Okay, that one doesn't entice me to the content as much as some of the other ones. Although Lucio Fulci's onto so many winners. City of the Living Dead is possibly my favorite construction of the Living Dead.
City of the Living Dead was one of the ones I thought about. The English title of the movie, The Psychic, is very boring, but the Italian title translates to 7 Notes in Black, which is a great title. I also I'm also going to try and pull out my my Italian for this, which was let me think back on what it was. E tu vivrai nel terrore l'aldilà, which is the Italian version of The Beyond. How much better? And it would translate to "and you will live in fear, the beyond." It's how much better is that than just The Beyond?
So good.
I'm just loving all these accents.
Fulci,
I'm loving this. This is the best episode I've ever been on, because I can just listen to you guys talking Italian all day. Let's do this more often.
So what about you, Carrie? Are you excited to go see A Lizard in a Woman's Skin?
I'm a little bit confused by the title, because I don't know if you were to say there's a woman that has a lizard under her skin, I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. But how does the lizard get into the skin? And that's where I'm a little bit
Well, the idea is that she's basically a were-lizard, essentially. She is a sort of... she is a carnivorous monster lizard who's pretending to be a woman.
Ah, that makes total sense. I didn't see that coming. Okay.
Because dames, am I right?
Yeah, it's sort of drawing on the same iconography, I guess, as cat people.
Yeah.
I dare say they had something like that in mind when coming up with it, but it's
there is not a were-lizard in this movie. It's just
from what I understand, it is entirely it's analogous. It's metaphorical.
Yes.
Oh, so you're saying no one turns into a lizard?
No.
Oh, well, now my whole mental picture of this movie's gone. I was kind of into it for a second there, but I'm back to putting it on my never watch list.
Okay.
But I bet it's good, and I bet everybody that's listening, or a subset of people that are listening, will watch it now. I'm sure that it sounds good.
For sure.
But Tim, you obviously have another one that didn't make the list, but it was in the case. You were thinking about it, you were considering. But what do you have at your number 2?
So my number 2, actually, another overlap between Andrew and I. This is my film that I have not seen and should. Okay. I need to get on this. Great title. It has punctuation in titles is something that always gets me a little excited. Mm-hmm. Not unlike the Octopus. There are 5 words in this title. There are 3 exclamation points and a comma. So every single word has a punctuation mark following it. This is the beloved Russ Meyer sexploitation film from 1965. Faster, Pussycat, kill.
Yes, when you said 3 exclamation points, I think I put that together. Yeah, and yeah, it's so punchy.
I know it's about sexy ladies with just gigantic tits, shooting guns at people and stealing things. I know nothing else about the content, but I do know that Faster Pussycat Kill Kill is a good title that makes me angry with myself that in 41 years on this beautiful blue marble, I have not managed to see it yet.
No, like I think that may have, that one's just gone on my watch list. I think I may have to catch up with it now.
Oh, wow. I was actually thinking you guys would be opposed to punctuation in titles for some reason, because I'm an over punctuator. I love
makes me all hot and bothered.
Oh, does
quite the opposite. Yeah, like punctuation is fun.
Oh, you know what? Because every time I write, or so I text you, Tim, I'm like, you know what? I do like to overuse the exclamation point. And some people are like, stop yelling at me. And I'm like, no, I'm letting you know that I'm happy, that I'm excited to be writing you with this exclamation point. And people are on either side of the fence. And Tim, you're not big on sending me back exclamation points.
Well, as you said, I'm letting you know that I'm excited if I give you an exclamation.
Yeah.
I should have saw that coming. I should have, but I didn't.
When the text is, hey, Tim, where are these 4 Patreon reviews coming out? My response is not going to be soon. Yay. It's going to be motherfuck you.
I didn't put an exclamation point. I do a smiley to indicate that I'm smiling because I want you to know what my face looks like while I'm messaging you so that it doesn't feel like it's wrought with any sort of pressure. It's me just giving you like, hi. And actually my face kind of looks like that emoji anyway. So it's like, I'm just sending you my face. You do have a round face. Yeah. I got compared. That's the other thing. When I was at Sundance, I got compared to a little Charlie Brown character. So I was like walking around in my coat and somebody was like, started singing Charlie Brown songs around me. They were in our group too.
That's really unfortunate.
And I was like, that's
what? Mean.
Is it?
That's uncalled for.
At the time I was like, I kind of do look like Lucy from Charlie Brown, so I'll just go with it. But we just have to just accept who we are, I suppose. But neither here nor there.
So what's your number 2?
My number 2. I'm gonna blow your guys' minds. Like this
Please
one,
do.
My mind was blown as I was even writing this list. Like the more I thought about how many layers there are to this title, I was just like, this is so good. So this made my clever wordplay category. Okay. All right. Just take a beat here for a second. Take a beat. Good Will Hunting.
It is wordplay. It is actually, I've always enjoyed the wordplay.
Good Will Hunting.
Because his name is Will Hunting and he's good.
Or is
he warrants goodwill. Yes.
Warrants goodwill.
Yeah, when you diagram it out, I can see, I can get that.
Yeah. They're hunting for goodwill. He's kind of struggling with that. He's a little bit aggressive if he's had a couple of beers. No one likes that. But also, his name is Will Hunting. The more I just played with it and played with like the layers, I was like, gosh, that's a good title. And gosh darn it, that is a good movie.
Unironically, I've always enjoyed that aspect of this title.
Have you?
I have. I really have.
Oh, man.
Sure. Yeah, I can get behind that. It's a good title. I think they may have stacked the deck ever so slightly by the fact that they wrote the character's name as Will Hunting, so they're able to sort of like have that pun in the title in the first place.
Well, that's what you do when you're an Oscar-winning screenwriter.
True that.
That's fair. Yeah. When I was writing this, also was in such a good mood as I was thinking about this movie because I was like, if I think about this was the movie that like let me know that I wanted to be in a relationship at some point in my life. Like, gosh darn, I saw Matt Damon back then and I think I thought I was truly in love. I was like, this is somebody that I want to marry. Like if I meet Matt Damon someday, and I held on to that celebrity crush. I mean, it's actually still very real for me. I love
Ghost Among Us.
Yeah. Right? He was such a steamboat in that movie. And then layer in, it was like, oh, he's so smart. I love people that are so smart. And he was just so cute. And it was just like, and that accent, that Boston accent. Anyway, it just reminded me that I need to watch this movie again. I really miss Matt Damon.
I think for me, the main takeaway from this episode is the revelation that you think the Boston accent is sexy.
I was actually having this conversation with my sister just this afternoon. I promise I'm not making this up. Where we're talking about like regional US accents and the sort of like way they characterize them. And I think the phrase that was used was every time I've heard a real Boston accent, it sounds like somebody taking the piss out of a Boston accent. That's the best way I can think to describe it.
No, I mean, yes, no one feels like they speak it authentically, and yet.
That's fair. Maybe it's his fake one. Maybe it's the fake one that I'm into. I think I just liked his tough guy exterior, and when he like slams the thing up there with the apples, and like, how do you like them apples? I was just like, oh, I want somebody to do that for me. Like, I just want him to like chase me down at a bar or something. It's never happened yet, but like I feel like it might be going to happen. I think Rob will do it someday. Maybe, but neither here nor there. I am watching this movie ASAP to remind myself of my childhood love. And that's my number 2, which I think, Tim, sadly, it's going to head it back to you for your number 1. Since we've taken Andrew.
Why is it sad?
Well, we skipped Andrew because we've already had him go. So it's back to you.
Because it read to me, it's like, well, sadly, we have to talk to Tim again.
Oh.
No, of course not. Okay. I'm so excited. What's your number 1?
So, everyone knows that this is going to be my number 1. I feel like I've talked about this a ton. Maybe it's only the people who know me personally. I don't know. I don't think it's going to come as a surprise. It's my Giallo pick, 1972 film by Sergio Martino. And it's just, is the movie phenomenal? It's pretty good. Is it as good as its title? Can't be. No film could live up to this title, which I'm going to reverse things. I'm going to give you my butchered version of the Italian title first. And then I'll give the English title. In Italian, it is something akin to, my apologies to the Italians out there, Il tuo vizio è una stanza chiusa e solo io ne ho la chiave. And in English, it is your vice is a locked room and only I have the key. That
takes some topping. I think that may actually top Lizard in a Woman's Skin.
I mean, Lizard in a Woman's Skin's great, but your vice is a locked room and only I have the key is just it's a short story. That's not even a title to a movie. Like that is a full-on narrative in and of itself. It's sexy, it's scary, it's threatening, just like the Jolly themselves. And that's my best title of all time.
You know, this did actually throw me a little bit because I thought right up until you said it that it was going to be Twitch of the Death Nerve.
The problem is I sort of early on outlawed films that had very significantly different titles in English than Italian. Because there's so many of the films, like if the Italian original is great and the English original sucks, such as The Beyond or The Psychic, I would have considered them. I felt weird about giving a distributor title, especially given that it is primarily known as Bay of Blood.
That is fair. So yeah, that's a pretty good caveat to extend. But also, I am not even sure if that does top Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key.
Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key is an epic.
This is another one I'm going to have to put on my watch list now, I think.
It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. Not the best. It's actually not as good as A Lizard in a Woman's Skin as a movie, but it's pretty damn good.
Okay, excellent.
Carrie, do you believe that Your Vice is a Locked Room and only Rob has the key?
But what is my vice?
I don't know.
Oh.
I'll bet it has something to do with sex, though.
Oh.
Because it's an Italian movie.
Is that the case in this movie?
It sure is.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It could be. Who knows? But I don't like to lock things. I don't think I have a locked room. Was this a movie that I would like?
Almost certainly not.
Okay.
I find it difficult to. You did like Suspiria, so you know there have been surprises.
Yeah, that one I think I was in a mood. Maybe I have to get in the right mood for it. I think I need to go in. There's been a couple where Tim's like teared up a little bit because I liked it lately. That other one that was like, what was that other one?
A Hidden Life.
Oh yeah. Oh, I loved A Hidden Life. Gosh, that was good. But this one does sound like I won't. But you never know. You never truly know.
But do at least just say it out loud one time. Your vice is a locked room and only I have the key.
All right, I'm going to try it with my Peg Bundy voice. You ready? Your vice, my vice, is a locked room and only I have the key. Is that it?
It's pretty close.
Is it good? Did it
you
feel?
said mine, not your, but otherwise.
Did it melt over you? Were you like, yeah, that's a good title?
It felt good. But what does it feel like to say it? Didn't you like saying it?
Not really. No.
Well, fuck you.
Does everyone want to take a go at it in their most sultry Italian accent?
Sultry Italian accent. I'm going to work on my Italian for next time.
Italian accent goes straight to Mario. It is
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Your vice is a like room, and only I have a key.
And I want the meatball.
That kills it.
I just want the meatball for my key. Is the meatball?
Yeah. What was isn't there that whole running gag in A Fish Called Wanda where Jamie Lee Curtis is turned on by John Cleese speaking Italian?
Yes. I love it. It's so good. Oh my gosh. But what's even better is my number one. It's actually not, because the category that this one wins for is most overrated movie with literally the laziest title I've ever heard is the category.
Why would that be your number one?
Yeah.
Because I think that it's the most notable. Like, this is the one that I'm like, I have it on here because I think it is on some sort of pedestal for being amazing. And then when you actually think about it, it's like everybody knows this movie. And it's the laziest title that also exists. So, like, if I were to walk up to you right now and I was like, hey, best movie of all time, best title of all time, and it's called Black Chair. And you're like, oh, that's kind of boring. Like, what is that even about? Like, I don't even know. And that's essentially what this title does. It's like, what is this even about? So what if I were to walk up to you and be like, all right, I'm going to give you the English version of this, okay? I'm going to do it reverse order. I'm going to do the English version. You tell me how good this is. I just really loved the movie White House.
Okay, yeah. I see where this is going.
I am unaware of any living person who thinks that Casablanca is a great title for a movie.
But then why are you on this pedestal of being amazing? Why? This is like the most lazy, most boring title for like such a different movie than that is.
I mean, Citizen Kane's not a very good title. Citizen Kane's still a good movie.
Citizen Kane's
Vertigo is an out-and-out bad title.
Now I'm just going to turn everything into like Spanish, and now it's going to be like a title. I'm going to be like Casa Negro. Like it's like the Black House.
Well, you also know that Casablanca is the name of a
actual city
in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that?
And that's where the movie takes place.
It is a bluntly descriptive title in
Manhattan or Nashville.
So what you're
being
saying?
The titles of Manhattan and Nashville.
I see. So what you're saying is that the movie's it's more about the city than the White House.
I'm saying the film takes place in Casablanca. Morocco.
Oh yeah. I can see that now a bit more as being applicable. It's more applicable than I thought. I just thought maybe there was some sort of house in the movie, and then I thought it was
we see at least Humphrey Bogart's bedroom, so presumably we're in a house at some point. Or an apartment.
Maybe it isn't maybe it's not as bad. I had already retitled it because I was like, would you like it more? Let's just say I've retitled the movie. What if I said the real title of the movie is Here's Looking at You, Kid?
I mean,
is it better?
Do we want to spitball ideas for what would be an appropriate and interesting title for Casablanca?
The play was titled Everyone Comes to Rick's, which is a better title.
Yeah, it's not amazing, but I could get behind that. Yeah, it's better.
All right. Well, let's.
This is what I'm saying. I feel like you're under the impression people think Casablanca is like an old timer of a title.
I think I did, and it seems like it's kind of like overrated and boring.
It's like when you go to a restaurant and you're like, I would like to get the ham sandwich. And it's called a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
It's a ham sandwich. It's not called the Porky Pigwich. No, it's just a ham sandwich.
Yeah.
And Casablanca it's just Casablanca.
It's just a ham sandwich.
Casablanca.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we agree that it is both boring and lazy.
It is a title.
It is a title.
It is a title. So
I don't think it's conspicuously bad. I think it's just fine.
I find it to be conspicuously bad, but I also want to let you guys know that this week there were lots of other movie titles that were shared by listeners. And we do not have an audience top 5 this week because I don't think there was one single overlap. I wanted to share that with you guys. I know. The entire.
I think I saw a couple. Like the Snakes on a Plane came up in the comments a couple of times.
Number one, Snakes on a Plane.
If your Vice did not show up on multiple lists from our website, our readers have failed me.
They have failed. You look out.
I take that as a personal
You look
betrayal.
out and see.
I'm sure I did see it somewhere. I know it was. There were quite a few comments, and there was not a lot of overlap, but it must have shown up.
Not enough to have a top 5, but we did have a winner this week, and it was MadNessMonster. I love this too. I don't know if this person's name in life is Ness, because the Ness is capitalized. I don't know if it's also like Loch Ness Monster, so then it's like I'm trying to play on that, but it's MadNessMonster. Awesome title of a movie already, which makes this even more special that they've won this week. My short list of movies I haven't watched because they cannot possibly be more fun than their titles. At number 5, 8 Hades. Wait, 8 Hades.
8 Hades in a Duffelbag.
8 Hades in a Duffelbag. Yes, that is the one at number 5. I have trouble with the word head. It's been a theme on other episodes. And number 4.
Oh yeah, Rob has complained about your head in the past.
This is inappropriate, and it will not be edited out because I'm not editing, but I will wish that it will be. At number 4, Amazon Women on the Moon is another one.
I can vouch that that's not as good as its title, FYI.
It is not. At number 3, this is one I actually want to see because of the title. It is called Twinkle Twinkle Killer Cane, which is apparently only available as, in quotes, the 9th configuration now. Those cowards. Yes, those cowards. At number 2, Cannibal Women in the Avocado Jungle of Death.
That's amazing.
That is awesome.
Also one that is, by all accounts, not as good as its title. So MadNessMonster's instinct for I probably should avoid seeing it is spot on.
Yes. And at number 1, Operation : Dumbo Drop! ! Speaking of punctuation, that seems...
Punctuation makes everything better.
Yeah.
It does, indeed.
It's the reason why John Huston's Moulin Rouge is a forgettable melodrama and Baz Luhrmann's Moulin Rouge is a masterpiece.
Yes, for sure.
Agreed.
One that I just want to give an honorable mention to, speaking of punctuation, and this did not make my list, but it probably was in consideration, was A Talking Cat! ! A talking cat? ! It's an interrobang followed by an exclamation point, and that's such great. Overkill.
Because it matters though, because it's showing you that while the confusion and questioning is part of it, the enthusiasm is more important. It's twice as enthusiastic as it is confused.
The enthusiasm overrides the consternation for sure.
Indeed. All right. Well, MadNessMonster, please shoot us an email at contact@alternateending.com to claim your free Amazon movie rental. And in closing, I don't want this to be over, but it is. Thanks for joining us. You can head out there, go to social media, go to our face page. You can go there. You can also go to Facebook. You can go to Twitter, Instagram, alternateending.com, where you'll find all of our movie reviews, podcasts, and more. Next week, we'll be back with a Pass the Popcorn episode reviewing Once Upon a Time in China. Laura and Tim, you'll be bringing THX 1138, just so you know.
I'm pleased to have been given that heads up at this point.
I want to vouch ahead of time for Once Upon a Time in China. I'm actually in the process at the moment of working my way through all of the winners of the Hong Kong Critics Association Best Action Choreography winners.
That's a good list to go through.
And Once Upon a Time in China, the winner for 1992. Old school favorite of mine. Incredible final ladder fight between Jet Li and I forget the name of his opponent, but one of Jet Li's finer outings.
All right. Well, I can't wait. And thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us. I hope this wasn't too horrifying and scary behind the scenes. Did we make it through? Are you like, I never want to be on a podcast again? How have we fared with you coming out of this?
This was a blast. Thank you very much for having me on, guys. I now know what it's like to sort of get the Carrie anecdotes in real time rather than getting them after the fact. So, that was a revelation. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a trip.
It's been a pleasure. Do you want to plug your own podcast one last time?
Sure. So the name of the podcast is Two Friends Watch. You can reach us at twofriendswatch.libsyn.com. We're also on Facebook. We're on Spotify. We're on all the usual podcast distribution sites. And you can also find me on the Discord and hanging around on Letterboxd, where I'm findable as Andrew Milne. That's where I am on the internet. That's where I live.
Awesome. So everybody go out, listen, give Andrew a follow, and thank you so much for guesting. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll catch you next time.